Kia ora and welcome. Welcome to another episode of The Leadership Lounge. I'm Katie, I'm your host. Great to have you back in the lounge. Lovely that you're here. Welcome. Come on in. Grab yourself a drink, take that big breath. That time is now yours to pause, take that breath, reflect and consider fresh perspectives on the work that you're doing. The Leadership Lounge is a space for healthcare leaders wherever you are working, whatever element of your job, your sector, wherever in the world that you are, just to get that time for you, that ongoing reminders, prompts, development that we all need, because it's an ongoing progress. We're all works in progress. Me included, for sure. I'm Katie, I'm your host, and I've worked in healthcare for over 30 years, and I now get to work with a range of people to support them so that people feel connected, open-minded, optimistic about the work that you are doing every day. Still with the echoey noise, the microphone, all the other stuff that goes with recording a podcast, it is still on a boat heading towards the UK from Aotearoa. It will be here mid-October probably, and maybe I'll have decorated a bit more of the house. And of course, when I say I mean Adam. We're making progress though, it's going well. Rightio, so this week, there's been a theme, as always. You know, I try and sit down, I make this little content plan list, and then it just gets thrown out the window because I have such great conversations during the week. It's like, that's clearly the message coming from the universe at the moment. And of late, it's been around getting new jobs. Now, whether that be the actual interview process, whether it be about thinking about a new job, whether it be about it's time for a change, or whether it be more forced, as in we're being restructured or I've been made redundant. So there's a lot around this new job business at the moment. And I myself recently got a new job. So there's a lot of that going on. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that, because often when it comes up in a coaching conversation or when a friend calls, I kind of go, oh no, I kind of drop, because I don't consider myself any kind of career coach with no particular expertise or training in that. And I was sharing this with a good friend who is also a coach, and she goes, well, it's the same principles. It's about meeting people where they're at and building from there. And that's certainly true. But there are probably three things that seem to reoccur in all the conversations. And these are three things that I would turn to myself in those moments where I'm thinking about a new job or facing an interview or any of that stuff. So if you're in that space, or you know someone that might be in that space, or you are leading people and are likely to have these conversations with people, then this is a good episode to listen to. Take some notes. Not too many notes. It's not that taxing. Okay, so where would I always start? I always start with a space of this being an opportunity to reassess your core values, to really understand what makes you, you, and to really pull out what matters most to you. So whether that be about revisiting your values and checking them in against where you're at right now, what's going on in your life, your world, all of that, or whether it be an opportunity to take a fresh look completely and just start again. Or maybe you've never done that work. So if you've never done that work, this is a great moment in order to feel confident around the decisions that you are making as a leader in general, but particularly when you're thinking about a change or a new job or a change in direction, then knowing what your values are, really crucial. Our values are these guideposts, for want of many descriptives, words that you could use about what values are. But they're important because they tell you what matters most to you. And if you're not using them consciously, you can end up in all sorts of things. And you can sit in the middle of a job and you're going, why am I not enjoying this? And then you realise that the work or the setting or whatever it is doesn't really light you up in terms of what your core values are. So it's a really important time to do that work. Of course, I've got some links around things that are going to help you find that if that's the work that you need to do, and they'll be in the show notes. The other part of this knowing who you are is particularly around finding your strengths. Now, I talk about strengths quite a lot, and remember, my go-to person that I would highly recommend when you're thinking about your strengths is Daria Williamson, because she's just got it all together around understanding what your strengths are. But it's a great opportunity. And a few weeks ago, we talked about doing a SWOT analysis, and exactly the same. This can be an opportunity. You just use that tool. And there are a number of different online tools or books you can read around uncovering what your strengths are. Because those two things together form this really good clarity picture for you around what is the amazing thing that you're bringing into the world, and how does that align with what really matters to you. So the second step leads on quite nicely from that, because this is about what's that future self? What are you looking towards? What's the direction that you're wanting to head in? What's on the horizon for you? Now, I used to hate and rarely use it, but hate it when I get asked, what do you want to be doing in 5 years' time? And I struggle with it, because never has my career ever mapped out like a plan. And some careers are like that, some aren't. If you've got this very clear plan, then go for it. And I love it. So it's akin to that, but I like to think of it more as to the direction, the on the horizon, which of course we never reach a horizon. It's always in the future. I've done a great visualization exercise with Tara Moore, who wrote Playing Big, around finding your future self and tapping into your inner mentor, because this is the wiser version of you in the future. And there's a lot of books that tap into that kind of idea and talk about that. This is this visioning space. So it's about your future self and what you want your world, your life to be looking like, including your working life. But it also connects very much into this. What are your aims? What are your goals? What's the difference you want to make in the world? And as you're listening to that, I hope you can see that has to lead from understanding your values and your strengths. Because if you understand that work of strengths bit, if I want to be, if the difference I want to make in the world is to be a rugby player, for instance, the Rugby World Cup is going on at the moment here. Quite interested. It's been quite cool watching. But I have no skills with rugby whatsoever. It is unlikely, no strength in that space whatsoever. It is unlikely that I'm going to shake up the world by playing rugby. Let's be honest. But if I focus in on what my true strengths are and what really matters to me, then that's the space I'm going to make a difference in the world. So those two things really sit in alignment. And then, this is the really cool bit. The third step that you take then is to actually start to look backwards. You're actually looking back over your career. Now, there's a lot of value in this. Starting off, you can celebrate how far you've come. You can actually stop and acknowledge the experience, the wisdom, the roles, all those things that you've done. And that's a great moment. It builds a lot of confidence, reminds you of everything that you've done. Now, you can do this in a lot of different ways. You can just write down your career timeline. You can go back to when you first started. You can go back as long as you want to over things. I used to joke that I would only ever complete my LinkedIn profile so I could check back over what jobs I've held. So it's a bit like looking at your LinkedIn profile and understanding all the jobs that you've held. But there's so much more to it than all of those things as well. Although those things are great on their own, there's a lot more to it. Now, if you remember last week, I talked about the fact that my thinking was being challenged by a book that I was reading. And I'm nearly finished the book now. And as predicted, I've taken on quite a lot of the ideas and I'm on board with quite a lot of them. It is definitely written for an entrepreneur, kind of startup, kind of I'm going to run a big business and take over the world kind of person. Definitely not written for a person in a corporate structure. Definitely not written for somebody within the healthcare sector, that's for certain. However, there are some nuggets of wisdom in it. So the book is 10x is easier than 2x. I can't remember the second tagline because I'm listening to it, so I don't have a hard copy. But it's by Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy. And it's all about, setting goals, and that actually setting massive goals, 10xing is easier than just 2xing. So this idea of a 10x is a massive leap, whereas 2x is the gradual progress. And hence you can probably sense that's where my challenge was, because I've been all about slow, steady progress, take small steps every day, all of that kind of stuff. So that was the challenge. However, let's put all that aside because I'm still working on that bit. But it does have this great chapter about looking backwards. and quote Steve Jobs around the fact that you can only join the dots by looking backwards. You can't join the dots looking forward. So it's actually essential that we learn to look backwards over our career. And you're asking yourself questions. It's like, okay, what has enabled you to take the leaps from one job to the other? What have been the challenges that you've faced in those different jobs? What have you learned? What are the mistakes you've made? Where's the growth? Where has that occurred? What have been the highlights? What have been the fun parts? Where have you had real joy and energy? What's given you meaning and a sense of accomplishment? So you can really look back over all of that. And so this idea that the new job isn't just the next step. So if you're in this position of trying to find a new job, it's not about finding what's the next step and where am I going. It's about understanding how you've got to where you've got to. And then from doing that sort of work and those kind of exercises, it can enable you to make the more obvious next step, defining and deciding on that next leap. Very much connected right back to that beginning of understanding what your values are, what matters, what your strengths are, understanding what that direction and where the difference is that you want to make in the world, but putting that together with really understanding in depth what you've done in the past. So a lot of wisdom, I really enjoyed that chapter around this. I was like, oh yeah, I got quite excited about that. And mainly I got excited because I've used a career timeline at several points during my own career, and they're one of the things that I very freely and willingly share with people around the visual nature that I have created, or whether it be more written rather than colouring in, and whether it expands to my whole life or whether it's just about my career. However, some really good prompts that I've sort of gathered and share and give out. I want to hone them down to just a couple of prompts just for you now. And of course, I'll be looking at re-evaluating and sprucing up the career timeline tool that I share so that you'll be able to grab that and download that if you want. Also will be shared in the next couple of weeks of the No Jedi email. So this is the perfect opportunity for signing up for that. You can sign up for that at www.katiequinney.com/subscribe. So this career timeline, and when you're thinking back over your career, let's just have a think about maybe the last 3 points, just 3 points where your career, your work life has taken a leap. 3 moments in your career where you've jumped from one thing to another. They might have been smaller leaps, they might have been bigger leaps, but just have a think about 3. So you've got 3 points written down. And then for each of those points, have a think. To get to that point, what did you leave behind? And then for each of those points, what did you gain when you stepped into that? What did you gain? And then the final one, for each of those 3 points, how did that shape your current self, where you're at right now? How did that shape where you're currently at? Okay, so you've got 3 points going back over your career where you've either taken a leap from one job to another, or you've done a few little jobs and then there was this massive leap. Whatever it is, the 3 points that you've made, and you've asked yourself 3 questions. What did you leave behind? What did you gain? And how has it shaped your current self? And you've got those few notes around that. You can have a look and go, okay, so what patterns are coming out there? What are the themes? What are the components that are standing out? What's emerging from that? And then your next question is, okay, so where does that look like the next obvious step is? And it might, of course, it's going to be a continuation of that. It's not necessarily this massive leap around things. And it's not just the next step. It's a continuation of all of these past leaps that you've made. that's coming up really clearly visually for me in my head as I'm describing it. I hope you've got that as well. I'll be busy this evening revising my current career timeline to really pull in those factors that I've gained out of that book, to summarise those a bit more clearly and to make it really stand out in terms of how you can use a career timeline to help you with what you're facing, where you're at right now, in terms of the potential for where you're going to next. All right. There we go. So this week we have looked at this idea of being in a position of wanting, needing, or just fancying a new job, the next step in your career. And 3 things to do to help you feel prepared so that you're really grabbing this grounded confidence around where you're going. Starting off with that space of getting to know yourself, really reminding you, what are your core values? What are your strengths? What is the difference that you bring to the world? What is that special uniqueness? What really matters to you? And what are you really good at? And then this direction setting, your future self. What's the difference that you want to make in the world? What's the change that you want to bring about? What are any goals or aims that you have around your life? And then this look backwards, because it's by looking backwards that we connect the dots and creating a career timeline of some sort so that you can ask yourselves those questions, ask yourself a few prompts so that you can then start to see what themes are emerging, what insights you're getting that can help you feel confident and clear about what those next moves are going to be. All right, I hope you've enjoyed that. Please, if you've got your top tips as to what you do or what you advise people when they come to you and go, I'm thinking of applying for this job, or I think I'm ready for a new job, what do you suggest people do? I'd love to hear from you. Please let me know. Great talking to you again this week. The echoing we're bearing with. You take care. Have a great week. Keep breathing, keep smiling, staying courageous, asking great questions, and I'll be back next week for another episode of the Leadership Lounge.